Max, a golden retriever with eyes as soft as his fur, had always been more than just a pet to Sarah. He was her companion through every storm, her confidant during her darkest moments, and her cheerleader when life seemed a little too overwhelming. They'd been inseparable for nearly 8 years, ever since Sarah adopted him from the shelter as a young, energetic puppy. Together, they navigated life's ups and downs, their hearts always in sync. But now, Sarah was sitting in a chair in their living room, Max lying at her feet, his tail thumping the floor every now and then. His eyes were fixed on her, sensing that something was wrong, though he couldn't understand the gravity of it. Sarah had always been strong, but now she looked fragile, her skin pale and her eyes filled with a sadness that Max could not interpret. The scent of hospital disinfectant still lingered on her clothes, a harsh reminder of the grim diagnosis she'd received just days ago. The doctor had called it terminal. There were no more treatments, no more chances to fight. All that was left was a slow, inevitable decline. Sarah had tried to remain optimistic at first, clinging to the hope that something might change. But deep down, she knew the truth. She could feel the weight of it in her bones. Max seemed to sense it too. He nudged her hand with his cold nose, a silent plea for her attention. Sarah smiled faintly and stroked his soft fur, feeling the warmth of his body against her legs. "I'm sorry, Max," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I'm sorry that I can't be there for you like I used to be." Max looked up at her, his brown eyes full of unwavering loyalty, as though he were telling her that it didn't matter. That he would always be there for her, no matter what. But Sarah knew the truth. She would soon be gone, and Max would be left behind. She had no family nearby, no close friends who could take him in. The thought of leaving him alone in the world tore her apart, but she couldn't bear the idea of him being put in a shelter again. Not after all the love and comfort they had shared. With tears streaming down her face, she made the hardest decision she had ever had to make. She needed to find someone who could care for Max, someone who would love him as much as she had. But who? Days passed, and Sarah's condition worsened. Max stayed close, never leaving her side. He watched her with a sense of devotion that was impossible to describe. He knew something was happening, but he couldn't grasp what it was. All he knew was that his Sarah was in pain, and that hurt him too. It was on a quiet Sunday morning, just a week before Sarah was scheduled to be hospitalized for the final time, that Sarah made the call. She dialed the number of her friend Rachel, a kind-hearted woman who had always been fond of Max. Rachel had a dog of her own, a playful beagle named Daisy, and Sarah had often joked that the two dogs were like siblings. But this time, it wasn't a joke. "Rachel, I need to ask you a favor," Sarah began, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "I need you to take Max." There was a long silence on the other end of the line before Rachel spoke. "Sarah, I don't know what to say," Rachel replied softly. "Are you sure?" "I don't have a choice," Sarah said, choking on her words. "I don't want him to end up in a shelter. I know how much you love him, and I trust you with him. Please, take care of him." Rachel promised that she would, her voice full of compassion and understanding. The conversation ended with a promise that both women hoped would never come to pass. But it was inevitable. Later that week, Sarah and Max took one last walk through their neighborhood. Max's steps were slower now, his age starting to show in the way he moved, but he was still strong and faithful. They passed by the park where they used to spend hours playing fetch, and Sarah couldn't help but feel a lump form in her throat. She had always imagined growing old with Max by her side, but that wasn't going to happen. As they returned home, Sarah knelt down beside him, her hands trembling as she hugged him tightly. "I love you, Max. You've been the best friend I could ever ask for. Promise me you'll be okay." Max looked up at her, his tail wagging weakly, as if he understood. He pressed his head against her chest, his body trembling with an emotion that was as deep as hers. The next morning, Sarah was in the hospital. She was weak, her energy drained by the disease that had consumed her. Max, as promised, was with Rachel, who had arrived the night before to take him in. The last thing Sarah remembered before the haze of sleep overtook her was the image of Max's sad, but trusting, eyes. Sarah passed away that evening, but in the months that followed, Rachel kept her promise. She gave Max the love and care Sarah had asked for, and Max, though he grieved, learned to find comfort in his new home. Daisy, the beagle, became his new best friend, and though he would never forget Sarah, he found a place in his heart for Rachel as well. And every evening, as Rachel sat on the porch with Max by her side, she would whisper to him, "Sarah loved you so much, Max. She wanted nothing but the best for you." Max would rest his head on her lap, his eyes closing in peaceful contentment, knowing that even though Sarah was gone, her love would never leave him. The promise had been kept.